I love Subway.
Something, something, eat fresh.
Nothing gets me ready for a panel quite like the fresh taste of Subway. Made fresh by your sandwich baristas, not like other fast food. Nothing fried, nothing frozen, only fresh. Eat fresh. Subway.
I forgot to tell you the check didn't clear. I forgot to tell you the check didn't clear.
The check cleared?
It did not.
The check didn't clear?
No.
Remember Jared from Subway? What a messed up company. Screwed up. I eat this as sustenance, not for fun and not for pleasure. I just need protein in me and carbohydrates. Like I'm a biological machine. Anyway. Hey everybody, welcome to our little fandom history panel about deep diving the Transformers news of 2003. This is based on a little stream series we did, and to introduce ourselves, but before I introduce ourselves, just a quick thing. Was anyone here not alive in the year 2003? Damn. All right, don't leave. This is gonna change your life.
We're invested already.
So we're gonna introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Chris Vangelus from the internet. And over here is Aaron Aksmth Smith.
Hi.
We've known each other since 2002, when we were going to BotCons back then. We're also on a podcast together, WTF at TFW. And Aaron has joined me on live streams on youtube.com/advangelist, where we've been going through the news of 2003. So why don't we give you a little bit of theater of the mind? Why don't you meet us in 2003? So there's us. There's us 21 years ago.
Yeah, let's find the most embarrassing picture of you from 20 some odd years ago and see how that goes.
The folks who weren't alive yet in 2003, you got any photos of yourself from 2003? Yes. Excellent. What a beautiful photo. So this is what we looked like. This is what things were like back in 2003, and this is the streaming series that we did so far. It took so I did this thing because I found the earliest news page on TFW, which was February 2003. And I thought, haha, it'd be funny to go up through 2008. Maybe it'll take like 2 or 3 streams. So 2003 took us 5 streams, each somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. And Aaron joined me at the end of stream number 1.
Yeah.
And then it's made way more sense having Aaron on since he was there with me through a lot of this.
Yep.
So by the way, there's a QR code there if you want to see a playlist of all these streams and maybe watch through them later. If you don't want to watch the entire streams, I can also say most of them have had time coding done by the heroic Logos Minor, who valiantly has time coded like the first 4 of them at least, and that's, oh, number 5's also, okay. Yeah, Logos Minor's in the room. I'm not going to point them out, but maybe a round of applause for Logos Minor. A lot of the stuff we talk about has been time coded, so please check those streams out. Go to the comments. You'll find the time code comment, trust me. Yeah, these have been a lot of fun. So this panel is not us going through the news again because we only have 40-some minutes. So instead, we're gonna start off with a little selection of headlines from 2003, and just a little spoiler. Aaron and I got as surprised by a lot of these as we were in 2003 because 21 years of memory is hard to maintain. So for instance, one of the first things we saw was the conclusion of the 88 miles per hour production saga for Genesis, The Art of Transformers, an art book that went up for pre-order many years before 2003. Not many years, but the delays were very constant. In fact, in 2003, it was delayed 3 more times, including a week before it came out. It got delayed again. This was a huge saga back then. This was like the saga.
Yeah, this is the one that, because what they showed at shows and online was a bunch of great artwork, stuff, never before seen things, and it was a whole lot of like, yeah, the check's in the mail, we swear, and it's shipped from somewhere. Swearsies, realsies, yep.
The best part was the final delay was a disparity between the ones they were shipping themselves that you ordered from them,
yeah,
and the ones they shipped to retailers which, at least in the front page news items, left the void of like, well, who shipped the ones to the retail?
Yeah.
Who shipped the ones? Where do they start?
Yeah, and there was a bit of like, we still have 7 in hand or something along those lines. It was like, please.
Anyway, this saga was so overshadowed by everything to ever happen afterwards that it goldfished and memory holed very fast in the same decades. It was fun to catch up on. Another one was Transformers Tatakai was announced, and all of our information on it was Japanese video game magazine scans and people assuring us they could read them, because
It's going to have every G1 character in it and every combiner, and they're all perfect, and it's the best thing that ever happened, and it will make you cookies.
And they're
That's how
making-
good this game is.
and they're making some scumbag Armada game in America, and it sucks in North America. Everything's better in Japan. Anyway, the game came out in 2003, and it reviewed. And all the reviewers were very clear that this game was very neat and sucked.
3 words, that intro video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they played it. There was a very funny part where like there was a pre-build at Tokyo Game Show, and 2 out of 3 of the articles were like, you know, if this game's in the hopper for another year or so, it could be great, but it's coming out in 3 months. So
Yeah.
brace.
I think it was it might be okay.
Yeah,
And then it was out and just
Also, classic Jeff Gerstmann article was among those. This was baby Jeff Gerstmann, eager about Transformers, writing very honestly, I really wanted to have nicer things to say about this. Also, Binar Tech, as it was through most of 2003, and Alternators and Masterpiece 01 were announced in 2003. So they didn't come out yet, so we got to see all the preamble. There was also a lot of link rot, so there was a lot of reference to articles and reports that don't exist anymore. But there was a lot of hype for these in 2003. There was also a lot of hype for the live-action movie that was just announced in 2003. In case you didn't know that they announced it in 2003, the front men being the X-Men producers.
yeah. That's how you knew it was going to be a good movie.
Yeah, because they did X-Men right. And let me give you some factoids from 2003. These are true. It will totally be G1. Don't know why you're all laughing. I thought you liked G1.
Yeah, repeated statements. It'll totally be G1, the Transformers you remember.
Going back to its roots, we're going to do right by the fans. Also, interestingly, we already knew about some of the potential directors, and we knew that one of them was out of the running in 2003. Michael Bay specifically was the first director to definitely and absolutely be out of the running to direct the film in 2003, and this isn't a bit. He was named directly because he was too busy. And this was really interesting to read in 2024.
Yes, both of us stopped, as memory serves, both of us stopped, was like, wait. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what the story reads. Yeah.
You ever had that moment where you're like, wait, did I just timeline hop? Did I just have the most boring isekai possible?
And Berenstain Bears, right?
Yes, it's Berenstain Bears, is what you said just now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, going off that, we each wanted to point out just like 3 things off the top of our heads earlier today, pre-written, that we learned during this. We're going to alternate a little bit. In case you don't remember, I'm the one on the top there in 2003 with my new world's smallest Transformers that I got at OTFCC 2003. And that's Aaron down there at CyberCon 2003?
CyberCon 2003, yeah.
That was there were a couple pictures of him. He looked identical in all of them, but this one, he didn't have people on his shoulders. He only had, Elvin Pena is just off screen, basically, for those who know.
Who remembers Elvin Pena? Can I see hands? I see 4 or 5 hands.
Hell yeah! I got my Metroplex off of one of his siblings. It was very nice. Anyway, one thing I learned was 2003 was Dreamwave's victory lap. They redesigned their website, and in early 2003, they said, not only is this the year of Dreamwave, but 2004, the year of Transformers, will also be the year of Dreamwave. They had a contest they ran with local Ontario art schools. And this was before this was a phrase. This contest was them getting art students to do design work as a contest, and the prize included the phrase, massive exposure. So that existed back then. Also, there was a very sobering interview when young baby Don Figueroa took over as the main artist. And he had phrases, I'm paraphrasing a bit, like, I'm so proud and honored that the great Pat Lee is passing the baton onto me so I can get a good head start and have a great, bright future ahead of me working on this here, the Transformers brand. That didn't entirely happen.
The number of different books that Pat Lee was proud to also be overseeing, and I'm going to oversee this and
personally
this.
overseeing the Energon and Armada books, according to press interviews. But yeah, Dreamwave had a big victory lap that year because as far as we know in 03, everything was fine. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, so one of the things that we kind of now speed past a little bit is back in 2003, like front page click-throughs was what you did. It was everything was like the blurb of the story, you know, the half link, would it be like a half-length tweet now, and then click here to go to the website, because that's how you did websites in 2003, I guess.
Yeah.
That's, you know, still a whole lot of the figuring out what is like a front page versus what are boards versus what are anything else, because it was all baby internet.
And unfortunately, TFW 2005 suffered a massive database catastrophe in 2005, oddly, known at the time as the Energon wave, which is why there are no message board posts pre-2005. They're gone forever. So a lot of these 2003 front page stories were linking to nothing.
to link rot and to what memories we could scrounge.
Yeah, even stuff that was hosted on the boards, like we got these, for those of you on dial-up, beware, we have these massive 18 megabyte AVIs from OTFCC 2003. They're all gone. A lot of the OTFCC coverage was brand new, cutting edge AVIs and photo galleries. They're all gone. So the streams there are moments in those streams where we're like, it sure would have been neat to know what people were saying. As for me, and kind of bouncing off that, the fandom of 2003 versus the children of 2003. This was one of my favorite things about these streams, is the audience of the streams in the text chat ranged a gamut of age groups, all the way from people who, at least two people who didn't exist in 2003. Shouts out Pee Pee Poo Poo. And a couple of folks.
That's his name, what?
Yeah, Pee Pee Poo Poo in the chat. There were also a couple of folks who were there for the Usenet era of Transformers fandom, which predates me for the most part. And people who were kids in 2003 seeing at least a taste of the fandom of 2003, those kids who went on to become part of the fandom, we had a lot of these kind of neuron connective moments that were just fascinating, like people who grew up where their childhood toy was Energon Optimus Prime, seeing the adult fandom of 2003 reacting to the reveal of Energon Optimus Prime, and they now as adults applying their now adult brain to those adults when they were a kid. Like it sounds a little kooky, but like the layered connectivity of memories is so amazing. It's part of the reason I love doing these streams.
Yeah, we'll frequently see people's reactions to, everybody think about like what was your first toy as a kid, and then if you go back to that toy now, that toy is not the same toy that you had as a kid. That's the thing that I think I've mentioned a few times in the podcast, and sometimes I'm talking about a toy in general, the new generation of stuff that's, this is what you remember that toy being, not what that toy actually is. You go back and, it's Missing Link, the Prime, you look at that is what people maybe our age having a G1 Optimus Prime think of what that was, and you go, okay. And then you see Missing Link, and you're like, oh, hey, this is it. This is what I remember.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on this again, by the way, later on, because the intergenerational reactions to old ancient news and websites was just amazing. But Aaron, on your end, you also were talking more about
more about what you stepped on. Yeah, so that was another thing early 2003 and through a lot of the news stuff was this is really pre-YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube does not exist. So anytime that you've got a video file, you're having to host it yourself. And maybe you have it in 2 or 3 different versions because it's not like you have some sort of smart player that can figure out how fast your connection is.
Dial-up users beware.
Yeah, quite a few video files of live things that would have like, oh, this is now you would think it's filmed with a potato, but it was good footage then.
This isn't 480p.
Yeah.
But we've got one in 120p for the dial-up users.
Yeah, and you would specifically have to have those dial-up user like warnings because that'd kill a thing. And then a bunch of photo galleries. Anytime new toys came out, people that was like you had to be the first one.
I got a digital camera that
Yeah.
can connect to my computer.
Yeah, the same way that later on in time there'd be, the first people to get it on YouTube. It was serious, the first people that would get a toy, do a photo gallery of it, and put it up on a board someplace or on a website someplace, so that then other people that were maybe interested in this toy could have an idea of what it was.
This
Because
doesn't come up in these actually, but it just reminded me, a lot of leaked toys in 03 were also, they were not leaked, by an influencer or by someone getting clicks. They were leaked by an eBay seller hoping someone would buy it
Yeah.
off their eBay page. And they marked it up to like $50
yeah,
for an unreleased as of yet figure. eBay auctions that also got summarily wiped by Hasbro constantly back
Yeah.
then, because it was a lot easier to come down on eBay in 2003 than YouTube in 2024. But yeah, and then to finish off my 3, early internet amateur journalism. So a lot of people who ran fandom sites, kind of the top level of active message board fan site fandom in 2003, also just finished college. So they were a lot of drunk early 20-somethings, and a lot of the candor and wording of some of those things were really funny to read. When you would see who posted something, if it said kickback, there was often like this extremely like 2003 cutting edge, like, hey guys, remember Soundwave? He's blue. But like, it's this really interesting early internet tone. And also coupled with reporting on Alta Vista Babelfish machine translations of Japanese text as gospel. And I can't even remember some of the wordings. Check the streams, we read them out loud word for word. It was difficult.
it was difficult. Well, that the whole binal tech versus
Binar
binar
tech.
tech, because that was what the first translations early machine translating was binar tech. And even when we had box images, no, it's binar tech, because that's what
Alta Vista said
Alta
so.
Vista said it was the first time, and then it was finally like, no, it's free to box. The box says binaural tech. Come on.
And also relying on like all of 2, maybe 3 people because they could get Figure King scans. They didn't even have the
Yeah.
magazine. They just had a source who'd scan them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was, pre this, that was how we got Car Robots, was
Yeah.
somebody shipping tapes over, or whatever nonsense it was that Tony Bacala was doing.
Yeah, tapes that bootlegged TV Asahi of 2001
Yeah.
getting ripped into real media. By the way, one of the early info people, or mid-2003 info people, S250, I believe we pieced together maybe the person who does Beastbox now. So that was an interesting moment.
Yeah.
But for the final of your 3 interesting things, we've got...
Yeah, a whole lot of stories about sales and variants, and then specifically the memory of one of the things that we went through was it KB or was it?
Oh, can I say it?
Well, I'm trying to remember the first part, then you can say the second part. But it was
Okay.
KB or Toys R Us or some store specifically had the closeout on Armada Unicrons with the Minicon pack-in for $40.
And we then immediately realized that was the twilight of customizer crotch era. That's where all the Unicron crotches came from. Was all these... What? Where else did they come from?
2005 Energon Armada liquidation.
Yeah.
Oh, that was part of this too.
$30.
Energon Unicron shipped into liquidating KB Toys stores in 2003 as well. And some people had found the new Energon Unicron as part of these sales in 03. But I guess, we're going to hit that too in 05. Also, can I tell them about the KB Toys
Yes,
cashier
you
thing?
can.
It's so
you
funny.
can tell them about the other exciting story that we did, Chris.
So KB Toys. Maybe not.
Okay, who
But,
doesn't know what KB Toys is? Raise your hand.
They're highly dead.
Oh, dear.
They used to matter. But class action lawsuit things where you get an email where it's like, fill out this email, do this whole form, get a $2 check in the mail. Someone humbled and humiliated KB Toys because they had a class action lawsuit where the end result was very specifically every cashier owned by KB Toys, no matter if it's a KB Toys store or not, every cashier will cash out at 30% off for these set days, no matter what it is, no matter if it's a different storefront name. whatever happened to KB Toys in court, they had their clothes torn off their body, and they were thrown into a puddle of mud, and they were told to swim around.
And there were, again, two specific stories of like, hey, if you go on this date, you can go buy this sale and this sale, and what was it? We figured like up to 65% off.
Yeah.
If you went on one of those sale days, and I specifically remember at seeing that again, being like, oh yeah, I remember going to the KB Toys that was in our mall in order to try and hunt down anything that I needed, and of course at that point in time it was carnage. But
well, also on the variants thing, 2003 is when Aaron was a freshly recovering variant hunter. And when you think variant, do you mean different paint jobs? No, this means the identical toy with slightly different codes printed on the back near the UPC code.
No, not quite that bad.
Well, how bad?
Quite. So anything, if it was a different pack-in, if it was different paint apps on it, I'm not saying redecos, like, okay, it's now the Energon powered one. I'm saying like they changed the way that they did the masking on the Autobot logos at the beginning of Energon in Armada, and some of those were variants that were picked up because they were different, or at least tracked, because I was friends with the Hartmans pretty seriously at the time, and that was a good job of like, oh hey, this one has a very clearly different color on this one part, do you want it? And within seconds I would have the text message response of yes, period. So
Aaron
sometimes
was
those
very
things
young
happened.
Then. Like you were
Yeah.
what, like 20,
That
21?
was 21 in 2003. We did the math. It hurt.
Yeah, but well, this is when you were recovering, though.
Yeah,
right? So when you were in it.
this was like right at the worst, and I'm into like the beginning of
Okay.
the like.
Well, you all know the really smart decisions you make when you have a hobby and you're 20.
Yeah. Credit cards, this is like free money.
And then you become friends with the Hartmans who are just doing the variant
Yeah.
hunter, like,
That have been doing that since '84.
yeah. So yeah, these were just a couple of the things we learned. There's plenty more of them, like the more we think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was also a really big thing in 2003, which was Orson's World's Twilight. This was the final year of Orson's World. And in the first stream, the Orson's World posts were all click through to see more, which depressed me. However,
Yes. Well, first off, I'll say, who doesn't know what Orson's World was?
oh, give them the
Again,
rundown.
a bunch of sad hands. Okay. So, in the beginning, there was somebody that was posting on TFW that went by the name of Orson, that had, okay, thank you, that was telling tales of inside of Hasbro, and it took a little bit to suss out who it was. It was never an open secret, or it was kind of an open secret at that time. Once you knew, you knew. But the gentleman that had the panel prior to this one, Aaron Archer, was on the 2005 boards posting as Orson. So initially it was just like, hey, there'd be something coming up, or somebody to ask, have in some thread about a toy, they'd say something like, this paint scheme's dumb, and then Orson would come in and say something like, oh no, well that paint scheme specifically is referencing blah 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 blah, because he knew.
Yeah.
And
he
then
was
there-
in lead at
and
the
then
time, right?
He was he would have been, if he wasn't the lead, he was a primary.
Yeah.
And occasionally there'd be people that would come back and be like, no, it's not, you're dumb. And everybody else would be like, okay, well, maybe this guy knows whatever. And the few that were staff at the time were like, we're not supposed to.
Overtures were made privately to sort this out.
Yeah,
and then
it'd be like, yo, dude, this guy it's known that he's a person that works for Hasbro. Your uncle that works for Nintendo that knows a guy that works at Hasbro is not the full, hey,
that's
perfect
Orson.
timing.
From Citizen Kane to Transformers the movie, it's him, it's Orson.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was going to say the true origin of Orson's World is also something that's lost to time but remains in hazy memories. I specifically remember before Armada was fully revealed, there was some guy who disappeared shortly after Orson arrived, who was saying things like, yeah, Armada Optimus Prime is going to be a love letter to 1984, and his minicon is going to transform into a matrix of leadership. Also, he will be superposable, as will Optimus Prime. And then Orson's first major appearance, to my memory, was going like, no. And then this guy would be like, yeah, well, I work at Hasbro. And then Orson would be like, no, you don't. Or if you do, come meet me in the hallway in about 20 minutes, please. Because what are you doing? So, you're just in time. So, we're not going to go through a ton of Orson's World stuff. Thanks to Logos Minor, we have a lot of it time-coded in the VODs of the streams. But as some examples of what we enjoy about Orson's World, there would be, what is this? There'd be stories like this. Where just look at the end, where it would be things like, it's long to explain about name trademarks, but did you know we almost lost Megatron once? Don't ask. Aaron Archer was in the chat at the time, or shortly after, so we said, hey, what was up with that? So we got the answer. There was a company that wanted to use the name Negatron. Hasbro Legal didn't want to deal with it, asked us if we really needed the name. I told them I would quit if they gave up the name. So, were it not for Aaron Archer, we might just have Bad Guy Boomba or something, or Leader, really? Oh, okay. Evil One. Also, there were other info bits that came out. We were talking about lost molds because the commemorative reissues were new, and Aaron Archer revealed that a number of old steel molds, no one really can know which ones, also became boat ballast in Hong Kong. So if you ever become a gabillionaire, you could buy the entire Hong Kong shipping industry and rip all the boats open and go digging through the ballast to see if you can find the Dinobots, for instance. And it's not just insider info, there's also fun bits, like, for instance, and he's here now, a thing that I always enjoyed, even in 2003 about Orson posting, was when sometimes he would just he'd be answering questions and someone would start asking about Energon, and before the convention that year, the response wouldn't just be, I'm not gonna be answering, it'd be, I will not be answering any Energon questions! Or the classic Orson answer where someone would ask something and in all caps the response would be, no! We got an update in the chat during all that, at which point Aaron said, I don't believe the all caps are yelling, it's supposed to be importance over volume. And I appreciate that and always point it out and then say my funny little editorialization is I like the idea that he was just screaming at people every now and then.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the questions tonally were funny, we'll get into that. But also, when we finally met Aaron at BotCons, Aaron is such a soft-spoken, kind, nice guy that it made it even funnier to me that sometimes his responses were like just full all caps on the message board.
That's where his real rage goes, the caps lock button.
But getting more into the twilight of Orson's World, we have a few bullet points out of this we wanted to highlight too. This was the original fan to Hasbro interaction. There was like a minor one at a BotCon that resulted in some guy getting fired, as I recall. But this was the original, and consider now we have Instagram access to literally the Transformers primary team, and that after the beginning of Orson's World, we also headed into a pretty much every year having a Hasbro Q&A panel at BotCon. Even the post-Aaron Archer-led era, there were Transformers design leads who just did interviews with YouTubers called Vangelus. Plug. Go look up Clint and Mark. I did one with each of them. But this was the start of something that became, with every passing year, if not every passing decade, like a tie that we have that like we don't really deserve, or it's not owed to us. But the more that this tie is maintained, the more that we as eager fans get a better education of what, you know, to a certain layman's degree, a better education of what we love, to better inform our conversations.
Yeah.
Also, it was for better and for worse.
Yes.
Because sometimes someone would ask him a question that would be like, hey, Orson, I love the Transformers, been a big fan since 1984, and the reissues coming out make my inner child happy at heart. Also, why did you screw up so badly and fail and put out Red Alert as a reissue before Sideswipe, which makes zero sense because Sideswipe came out before Red Alert in 1984 and Red Alert came out in 1985, and I'm curious what caused this catastrophic discrepancy to happen. And that would be the tone of some of the questions, because this was also
text and 2003, and yeah.
Why, Aaron, why are the colors wrong? Because I could be. Also, one-word responses to complex questions. I also started doing the emphasis thing in here, by the way, just as it's thematic. But there would be people who would also ask an extremely lengthy question that in its essence was a yes or no question. So there would be 4 to 10 lines of text, which would result in a no. Also, this is going back to a previous point, the reveal back then of what the kids to collectors ratio was, which, if I recall correctly, was about a 90 to 10 mix in 2003. And what's interesting about this, and going back to the children of 03, right, becoming the fandom of 2024, ignore that, is that a lot of that 90 became the 10. And as this ratio was reported on over the years, it always tweaked. The 90 came down a little bit, the 10 went up a little bit, and then realizing during these streams, part of that is that the 90 grew up to become the 10, but the existing 10 stuck around. And literally kids from 03 telling us how, as fans in 24, they're reacting to seeing some of this.
Yeah, and it's definitely a thing that, in 2003, nobody that was necessarily a kid, the kids that were kids for 84 are just now coming into adulthood and, the crazy amount of money that maybe makes you go to a convention. So, and again, that's a thing that, from back in the time when people would ask, well, but look at all the people that are on these boards, and it'd be something.
Look at all 400 of us.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. When you see the populations of boards from 2003 to even what they are now is a massive explosion. But it's definitely something that, going back and looking at it and having the interaction, seeing that, there's a reason why it wasn't, why there weren't the adult-oriented things like what we get now, why the soon upcoming in this timeline 20th anniversary prime
is next year.
Yeah. But to see how that was such a big thing for us and how we were constantly getting news stories about how that was evolving from the time that we found out about it to, I think at the end of the year, we finally it was out in Japan, and I think we had in package for US.
Yeah.
Because there was multiple questions about the smokestacks.
Yeah, are the smokestacks going to be long and murderous, and is there battle damage?
And battle damage, yeah.
That was all, it was to differentiate them. But also, I guess kind of bouncing off this stuff, this was an unprecedented connection to Hasbro that has only flourished since then. Not only in the connection to current, Hasbro folks through the years, but also to Aaron Archer, sticking around, coming out to TFcons, coming to watch streams about this stuff and filling in gaps of knowledge as we went. Also, just I think having, I assume, some of the same neuron moments as us. I think one of those screen caps involved Aaron saying, "I don't remember answering most of these." So it must have been kind of fun to see your own 21 years removed internet self. But the Orson's World Twilight. Orson's World ended in 03. That was a whole funny thing. But also, Transformers.com's official Q&As began in that year, and you could tell then that was kind of like the formalized version of Orson's World, but the fun was kind of not as much there flavor-wise. However, there was a very fun thing. I didn't get a screen cap of it. There was some fun there because it was Orson's World suddenly being run through the use specific wordings filter.
The marketing legal team of... I don't think that they were onto conversions as action word yet, but it was...
Rather than a fan going why, hey, I love Transformers, and why did you screw up Armada Thrust, for instance, as the wording, it'd be fans really enjoyed the return of classic seekers to the Transformers brand, even niche ones, ones with cone-shaped heads, sort of Thrust, Transformers TM. What could we expect to see in the realm of such things in future lines like the upcoming and exciting Transformers Energon TM? And that being the questions now has a whole different funny flavor to me that I am enjoying.
Yeah.
Also, check out the streams because we always alternate who plays Aaron Archer when we read those.
Or we did. For the streams, yes.
And we also always alternate who plays the askers. And whenever there's a lot of askers, I love giving them all different voices. Some of them, when the questions are really drawn out, I just try to see how wide I can open my mouth while I'm talking. It's a good time. But moving on from this, 2004 and you, we're going to continue doing these streams. So, like, what's 2004 going to bring to us in 2024? We're going to see the 20th anniversary in the 40th anniversary. That's the playlist, by the way, if you want to see the VODs. And also, not just 2004, I'm also excited about 07, because that's when the entire fandom changes.
Yeah.
Irrevocably in the course of about 5 days. We got thumbs over there. That's when the TFW 2005 membership, and this is something we brought up a lot, when people would see things like the 2005 board's debate of the week, for instance, and your immediate response is probably, oh God, Redditors, right? But in 2003, TFW was a small message board community of like no more than 4 figures, and the lower end of that, where most people you saw regularly posting, you knew them when you saw them post. So a debate of the week did not have the horrific implications that it would on a message board in 2024. In 07, the membership spiked from 4 figures to 5 figures, like, over the course of less than a week.
Yeah, I think that the actual spike was some, like, national news thing linked to a video or something that was hosted on TFW, and it crashed the boards, and then it got put back together, and then it like crashed 30 seconds after.
Fast and Furious?
Maybe, yeah.
Anton from Fast and Furious.
Oh, yeah. There was a Fast and the Furious news item that also did a huge kaboom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changed the board's flavor and culture, and it changed the entire fandom's flavor and culture over the course of less than a year in 07. And I think that's going to be a lot of discovery for us, given how many things in 03 we already were going like, what?
Yeah, for some of the member berries also back then, it was when you hit 1,000 posts on the board, it was a big deal. And everybody would pretend jump you into a gang. You'd get beat up by people, and you'd post your own thread about how you reached that. And at a certain point, it was like
you became one with the Matrix.
You became one with the Matrix, and just couldn't do that anymore. Anybody
you posted 1,000 times on a message board,
and
you'd get a thread to celebrate you for doing so. Whereas nowadays, people would be like, "Oh God, I posted like 400 times in here. I suck.
Yeah,
I'm terrible." But bouncing off all of this, we also wanted to leave room for any questions or any comments people might have. Either if you saw any of these streams, if talking about this stuff has given you any insight, or if you just have questions about the year 2003. We just kind of sped run it. I put a lot of 03 stuff in the thumbnails too, so if I dig in, I could probably figure out like what Vogue was talking about, some of the fashions. Was anyone at, there was no BotCon 2003. Was anyone at the official Transformers Collectors Convention in 2003? Any memories from that? Yeah, we got someone over there. But yeah, Q&A mic is open. Also, Mike is by the Q&A mic, and that's pretty funny. Mike, were you alive in 2003?
If you
helps if you turn it on.
It is on.
Helps if they turn it on.
I'll just be loud.
No, you?
The joke was if you call it living. But yeah, I was around in 2003. That was about when I really started getting into the brand. So I was actually even more so on the Canadian Transformers message board that evolved into Cybertron.ca before TFW 2005.
Yeah. Though that reminds me, we also saw lots of announcements about something called Transformers Con 2003, and the announcements about Transformers Con 2004. And that was very cute to see.
Yes, Transformers Con is what was that's not completely link rotted, it's been domain sat.
Oh yeah, someone has TransformersCon or TransformersCon.com. I forgot what the story was. Oh, that reminds me, I meant to talk about
like
this.
the real estate one, I think.
Yeah. We also had a moment where Les Brown of NRG, the singer of Instruments of Destruction, was starting a new band called something like Crack Jackals or something. I can't remember what it was called. But he had a website called area403.net. That website, untouched from 2003, is still there. And it has
a gig board.
A gig board where you could send in your classifieds to find connections in the music and art industry. So basically it's a global, long page of people doxing themselves voluntarily in detail.
Hi, I'm 14 years old and I like singing. Yeah.
Many,
it's still there.
Many
it's
of the
still there.
Most 2003 episodes.
There's an Internet Explorer logo on the bottom. And a lot of the people doxing themselves also are wildly underage in 2003, so it's okay to look at it now. And among the quotes, some that really stuck out, "Hi, I'm 16, female, and will do anything to be part of a band. Here's my home number and address."
Yes.
"Hi, I'm 14 and play the guitar real good. Here's my email address and telephone number. I live in this neighborhood." Also, Australians doxing themselves in 2003, which I guess is kind of funny. But yeah, also that site sells the new tracks in 2003 that Les Brown was making. The digital links don't work anymore. However, someone watching the stream successfully ordered a CD through the PayPal link. They became a YouTube member to join the Discord, not a plug because I don't want too many members, moderating sucks. And they wanted to give us updates, that's Ronnie. Less than a week later, Ronnie got a tracking number. No updates yet. I don't know what's coming.
I just imagine some dusty robot in some warehouse was awoken.
At last my function is fulfilled. The one copy left. We're trying to theorize, like, did Les Brown get woken up by an alarm clock that hasn't gone off in 20 years? And he opened this dusty box of CDs and just, like, hand wrote thank you and packed it away. Does this just connect to an Amazon warehouse through decades of transfer of, inventory? Who knows? Area403.net. Don't click too many of the links. We didn't. Link rot is terrifying. That's another thing that I remembered we talked about earlier. The number of people who saw website names and said that was around.
Yeah, Big Bad Toy Store was around in 2003.
Big Bad Toy Store, CD Japan. Some people reacted that way to Amazon, which was very cute. There were a couple other ones. Super 7, a magazine at the time, was around in 2003. There were names as well, like what is it? It was S250, whose bio and signature clearly indicated that is the person who went on to become at least involved heavily with Beastbox. Also, a bit of trivia: there's a good chance Villevalo of the band His Infernal Majesty was a TFW poster in the early aughts. His Infernal Majesty. Villevalo. There was a user on the boards named Villevalo. And he only posted for about 2 years, but shortly afterwards, and someone corroborated this during one of these streams, that user at some point was making a sales thread saying, "I have CDs to sell." And so we're pretty sure that Villevalo of His Infernal Majesty was a Transformers fan online at the turn of the century. There's no proof, it's all gone, that was pre-05. Also, Colin of TFcon was around back then. That was Baby Colin, as we like to call him.
Colin with hair.
Yeah, that was Hair Colin. Can you imagine him?
With hair? Look at him.
It doesn't work.
Look.
It's not right. He looks cooler like this.
Divided by 0. Worldwide, but with hair.
Mr. Worldwide? Oh, right. Yeah. You got to put on like a white shirt and you've got that Mr. Worldwide. Just tell people you're Mr. Worldwide. That's a T-shirt. Well, you could maybe.
I did have an earring in
Hell yeah, bring it back.
Yeah. You could rock it. You could rock it.
Yeah. But we had a lot of fun doing these streams. We wanted to share some of the experience. Hit up that QR code and you can see what we did. I'm hoping to put an Orson's World supercut together now that we basically have the only recorded Orson's World stuff ever remaining recorded. And please tune in and join us when we do 2004 and onwards. The plan is to do these until we hit the posting of the first episode of the TFW podcast, because at that point we started looking at news and recording it ourselves at the time. So there's no reason to do that over again. But it took us 3-4 months and say 30 plus hours to go through 2003. So, we'll probably hit 2008 by the end of the week.
I'm sure nothing is coming up after 2004 that will make it go slower.
Yeah, it's only going to be smooth sailing from here. That's the one last bit. We figured out how to speed it up by glazing past certain news items. Did you know an enormous amount of news was just hard hero statues having one-line updates? Lots and lots of Armada TV episode airtime listings. YTV actually had the scoop on Armada, so hey Canada. And also a whole lot of CD Japan, Amazon Japan, minor updates on the ad copy for Micron Densetsu DVDs. So we kind of just glaze past those things now. But yeah, thanks for checking out this panel. And if you were born before or after 2003, we love what you, we love our fandom and we love all of you. I was trying to lead up to kind of picking on the people who were born after again. Someone's actually asking a question. Holy crap.
Yeah, you kind of kept talking to not give them the window.
Well, I was waiting for them to you know, do the thing.
Hi.
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 I mean, I did exist in 2003, but for most of 2003, I was 2 years old. But I actually just wanted to ask two things. One thing, I don't know if I missed it, but you're talking about a 90 to 10 ratio of kids to collectors. I was wondering where that came from, and also I just wanted to hear more about like your perspectives as people who've been in the fandom for so long, how it's changed, how has like modern social media changed your experience, or like the fandom at large, how you feel about that?
Yeah, so
The
like
90-10 was from
the
Aaron
90-10 came from Aaron Archer. There was a question in Orson's World where they were very bad, like, blah, why aren't you doing all this stuff for the fans, blah, blah, blah. That was our reading. He may have been very sincere about it, but we read it as very, you know, angry, shaking a stick. And it really came about, he was like, hey, you know, all of our numbers say that kids are the ones that buy all the toys, or the toys are bought for children. And so, like, as we do a thing, we'll try to put an homage taste into it, but we're not making toys for adults because that market just didn't exist. You know, like I said, you know, it was the kids from, you know, 84 that were getting the toys in 84 that, and by 2000, the early 2000s, were just becoming of the age of like, oh, I've got a job and disposable income now. And so that's why the 20th anniversary Optimus Prime, the MP01 Optimus Prime, was such a big deal, because that was really the first transforming toy that was aimed straight at the head of adult collectors.
Yeah.
And so now when you look at it, I think when they've kind of talked about it, they look more like maybe
60-40,
you know, 60-40 to 50-50-ish, depending on how you want to look at like the modern lines that have throwback characters in it. Is that because they're filling out the line, or are they putting that character in there for adult collectors? Plus all the masterpiece toys that Hasbro and Takara are producing now, and the big things that are clearly, you know, licensed products that are going to adult collectors, really has shown that, you know, the adult collectors do make up more of a market now.
And just about our perspective on culture, like I can go on and on, but like the really key capsule of it is, I'm really happy I was there back then. Things were different back then. It was a little bit tight-knit, a little bit closer and smaller. And that's why I really love the way things are now, and I think things are better now, because we have so many on-ramps to this larger pseudo-community fandom thing that we have, that it's no longer just which message board do you live in. It's like we have interconnected like continents of fans that you can meet. It's like, how did you jump on? Were you 2001? Were you 2004? Were you 2007? Were you 2008? Or were you 2011? And that's just off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
And it means that we don't have the presence of the fandom elder who can flex any kind of fake authority. We just have lots of small communities, and especially through these streams, it's shown to me how much we can layer together and just find all kinds of perspective on what happened before and what could happen next. And I really love it. I love that this fandom does not have a spear tip. It's just a big old pile, and a non-derogatory. So thank you all for also being part of the pile. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hey.
So I was 7 years old when it's 2003. So
Bionicle? Bionicle?
Yes, yeah, Bionicle.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an activation phrase.
Like I was at 7 so disconnected from the Transformers community. Hearing that the '07 movie was announced in 2003, I had heard nothing about that. So, like, what year did you go into the larger fandom as opposed to just like your friends playing with Transformers? Like, when did you go-
1999 for me. I was in high school. I was lurking Alt Toys Transformers. Way too much. I know way too much about it, given I hardly ever participated. That's why it's been wild meeting folks like Trickster this farther down the road. And I was terrified to post on a message board for a good year and a half. It was BotCon 2000 when I met Tony Bacala, and I got convinced like I should try posting on this nice little small board that he runs. The niche little fandom nobody called 2005 boards.
Yeah, for me, I think I started lurking, well, it would have been in fall of 2000 when I had, I was at university and had like an always-on internet connection. Anytime I wanted to get online, I could. I didn't have to wait for the evening when nobody's going to call us to mess up the dial-up, living out in the country and starting to see stuff like that and becoming a fan. And then it was, I want to say it was 2002 was my first convention that I went to, because it was in Fort Wayne, which was a short drive away, and it was kind of a spur of the moment thing to go see that. And then it was just like oh my gosh, I'm not just a weirdo in my dorm room looking at toy pictures and the like. It was, hey, there's a bunch of people that really dig this thing that I dig, and kind of just like blew my brain that there are other people out there that like these toys.
And that's why I'm his senpai, because I started doing stuff a few years before.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was a preteen, I think, like at that time, and
Monocle?
yes,
Okay.
I remember that very much so. But yeah, so I didn't really hang out on any of the boards very much, and I think there's quite a few people about my age group that feel that kind of have a similar experience. But I did hang out a lot on the fanfiction.net place, like a lot, like reading fanfiction, and I will tell you actually, like because again of the pile that happens, and it's a fandom that never dies. It's just continuing on. I've noticed like so much change over the years, like in just like fan fiction, particularly just with the differences of shipping, differences of topics and things like that, and I just kind of think that that'd be like a very interesting thing to cover or somebody to delve into. I don't know, so I guess my question is like if you guys have any interest in that, or maybe possibly exploring that, or
I am
at all.
so interested in, as you put it, the pile. Whenever any kind of internet community has enough history and also a lack of hierarchy or eldership to just be lots of generations co-mingling and existing, and also, obviously not fighting openly all the time.
Yeah.
I think it makes for such interesting stuff. Like once you go past a decade already.
Yeah, because it has changed like just so much,
Yeah.
like from what I remember
And
it. So.
that's the thing that I remember from early times online, is because again there wasn't quite the fire hose that we have now. On TFW, you'd read all the fan fiction stuff because that was a new. Oh, hey, there's a new post in here. Okay, I'll read this. Maybe this person's clearly got a self-insert character. Okay, whatever. And then you'd move along because it was all part of that community, and kind of talking with the different communities that existed. Then there was a period of time at conventions where you were like, your message board was your clique. I specifically remember Bimma telling a story about, Bimma's a friend from Iceland. She's not managed to make it over for a while because flights and European currency and economy stuff. But, I remember specifically Lexington, at that BotCon, she came over and said, yeah, somebody from the Allspark came over and saw I was wearing a TFW 2005 shirt and hissed at me. And I was like, okay, but that was like beef territory, do we need to get a bunch of our heavies and go rouse? And it was like, no, he was like the little weird kid.
Imagine nerds in the early aughts also referring to heavies, and imagine what that actually would have possibly looked like.
We had a couple of heavies and we had a couple of heavies, but
we also got to keep rolling because we got less than 10 minutes left. But I would love to see more stuff like that.
Like deep dive into it, yeah. Thank you.
Once upon a time, people thought that the message board had a literal pit rumble at a BotCon. It's true.
yeah.
I will keep mine very brief. So,
Bionicle?
no, I was a sprightly 24-year-old in,
My generation.
yes, I was the G1 generation. OTFCC 2003 was the first year I was official convention staff. And I feel like nothing summarized the fandom experience at the time so much as the fact that absolutely no one wanted those collector plates until the collector plates got delayed, and then this was a crime and everyone involved should be taken out and shot.
We can't get into it, but that is an activation word for a certain level of the fandom onwards, is collector plates.
I just had to mention the collector plates.
Thank you.
There you go. Well, in 2003, I was 30 years old. Ooh. So I'm here to play the grumpy old man.
How are you still 30 years old now?
Well, you know. Dark Energon.
I'll do it.
Yeah. So we're here at the 40th anniversary, and obviously we're going to look at 10 years from now will be the 50th. And what do you see for yourselves, and what do you hope for going forward as we approach these milestones that just are going to get bigger and bigger?
More generations of fans and more of the 10 becoming the 90 and interacting and hearing more about people who grew up on Prime, people who grew up on, I want to hear from the people who grew up on Cyberverse. Like, how did you watch cartoons when you were a kid in 2019? Like, how did they even work, you know? I'm really excited about that stuff because, like I said, the pile means I'm only more and more excited about more people joining the adult fandom and interacting and thinking deeper about this stuff.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to see different people that have had those different on-ramps. And, you know, I always, you know, like I said at the start of it, or in the middle of it, you know, the toy that you remember versus the toy that you go back and see again. Yeah. And seeing people have discussions like that, and then seeing like, oh, the new Ginrai that's upcoming because Power Master Optimus Prime was my first Prime. Yeah. And seeing that new Ginrai, and I have my old Power Master Prime, and I know that that one has a lot more love and had a whole lot more imagination in it, but that's what I remember it being with the new one. So more iterations of that fun stuff.
And more TFcons.
Yeah.
We love TFcon. Yeah. What a cheap pop to also cover for the fact that we are hell of out of time.
Last one, we got time for one more. Okay.
I didn't exist in 2003, so how was it?
Okay. We were coming off of the fear that the Y2K bug was going to eat everything and we'd have to go back to stones and rocks and sticks.
That was an actual fear.
Yeah.
All right, that's all. Goodbye.
All right.
All right, thank you very much for an interesting look into the world gone by. We're just going to wrap this up and get ready for our next panel, which is going to be Ninjatron, teaching us about an even earlier era gone by of Generation 2.